Hey everybody, welcome to Culinary Characters Unlocked. I'm David Page. On this episode, he was trained by a master of Southern cooking, honed his skills at a New York dining landmark, and now his Milwaukee restaurant, Birch, is helping turn that city into a culinary hotspot. Here's Kyle Knall. Chef, how are you? Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, I'm doing great. How are you today?
I'm terrific. So, Eater names Milwaukee one of the country's hottest dining destinations last year, which was a surprise to a lot of folks. They mentioned your restaurant as one of the reasons why. Do you think Milwaukee gets the respect it deserves culinarily?
I think it's starting to, for sure. My wife and I moved here from New York in 2020, and I don't know if I'm closed-minded about it, but I definitely think so, as it should. It's an amazing agricultural community. When I talk about the subject, it always starts with that, which I think is really interesting and fun to really touch on. But yeah, I do think it's starting to be taken more and more serious for sure.
Well, you didn't start out in the Midwest. You're a Southern boy.
Correct.
I've read that Southern cooking was a significant influence on you.
Yeah, I think so for sure.
But that it's not what we think it is. It's not all fried chicken.
Yeah. When I opened Maysville in New York, that was the one thing that I always said was I'm a Southern chef, but that doesn't mean I cook fried chicken.
Well, what does it mean? What is it to be a Southern chef?
You know, it's funny, after living in the Midwest, it's pretty similar in thought process. What I mean is it's about using the produce from your community. I grew up in Birmingham. I didn't grow up in the country.
Birmingham, Alabama.
Correct, yeah.
Which is a very industrial city.
Yeah, for sure. But we still bought produce from a farmer that would drive into the city and set up in a parking lot, you know? So great produce has always been a huge, huge part of, to me, what Southern cooking is. And through all the years when I cook for Southern chefs, they don't know I'm from the South. They'll comment on all the vegetables and all the produce. And they're like, oh yeah, you are a good Southern chef.
Well, hold on. Maybe I have a misunderstanding. I lived in Atlanta for a while.
Okay.
And there's a lot about Southern cooking I like, but every time I go to a meat and three, it feels to me like they have just destroyed those vegetables through overcooking. What's the deal on the veggies?
It's funny because you say that because it's a meat and three, and mac and cheese is considered one of the threes. So yeah, those vegetables are hammered, but they're so soulful and delicious that it's okay.
So you grow up in Birmingham. Was food a big part of your life as a kid?
Yeah.
Could I have predicted you were going to end up as a chef?
Yeah. So what people actually don't know about Birmingham, there's a huge Italian, Lebanese, and Middle Eastern population. And when my mom was a kid, everyone lived by each other in this one neighborhood. And so like that culture was very strong. And my mom's father is Italian. So we always ate spaghetti meatballs on Sunday. Always. Everybody was always together.
With a good Sunday sauce that had been cooking up for a while? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And a funny story. So my brother was a chef for a long time. When he would babysit me, he'd make me Prego. And I'd say, Dave, I'm not eating this. Like, we eat like the real thing on Sundays. I don't eat this crap. So food was always a main part, you know, and even like barbecue, you know, we always had barbecues.
Well, you're in Alabama, so is it the white sauce stuff?
We're obviously known for that up in Decatur. Big Bob Gibson developed that. But to us, it was like a red, really acidic sauce that went with like pulled pork. But we'd eat that after baseball practice. We'd eat that in place of fast food most of the time. So once barbecue became a trend, I wasn't really all about it because to me, it was just like part of who we were. So yeah, between I think the Italian side and always being around food for celebrations, I always loved food.
Well, did you study? Did you do culinary school at all?
Yeah. So when I was 15, I was like a waiter's assistant in a nice neighborhood restaurant that my brother and sister had actually both worked in. So I bussed tables and I did all that. And come summer, I said, I'll actually at lunchtime, I'd love to work the salad station. And after that summer ended, my brother said, if you really want to be a chef, why don't you come work for us? And so when I was a junior in high school, I started working at a restaurant called Daniel George, where my brother was the chef de cuisine. And it was a white tablecloth, fancy restaurant, dinner only, celebration type restaurant. So I started working Gramercy station there when I was really young. I get out of school every day at 3, drive there, get there at 3:30. So I was hooked really young. And at that point, I kind of didn't look back. It was something that I felt like I was good at and I loved. And I chose to do that. I chose to be part of that community of chefs instead of like hanging out with kids in high school and stuff like that.
When did you go to culinary school?
In Birmingham. So I started working for Frank Stitt right when I graduated high school.
The legendary Frank
Yep.
Stitt, who received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Southern Foodways Alliance for everything he did to make Southern cuisine well-known and esteemed.
Right.
Okay, so you're working in his restaurant?
So I started working in his restaurant. I worked with him for, I think, like 4 years. And in the meantime, I stayed in Birmingham to go to culinary school so I could continue to work for Frank. To me, there was greater value in that. My parents said they would help pay part of culinary school tuition. No one else in the family went to college at the time. And so I said, I'll definitely do it. And I did it, and it was great.
I get the sense you think you learned more from Frank Stitt.
Oh, for sure. But it was structure that was good to have. But I remember like starting my first class in culinary school, the instructor asked us to bring cookbooks to class, things to like talk about recipes and stuff like that. And I brought Frank Stitt's cookbook and I brought the French Laundry cookbook. And my instructor was like, okay, I know you're totally different than everybody else in here. And so to me, it was something that I wanted to do, needed to do. And I think it was worth going to school. I mean, it is what it is. People say it's not, but I think having structure and going to school every day, going to work afterwards, it was a good preparation for working hard in the kitchen.
So you're well established in Birmingham. You've got a career going. You're working for one of the legendary chefs of Southern cuisine. And as I understand it, you fall for a girl.
Correct.
And suddenly your location plans change.
Right.
Tell me about that.
It's funny. I had always said I wanted, because, Frank was influenced by the Berkeley community back in the 70s. And I'd always said I wanted to go to work at Chez Panisse in the French Laundry, just like most young American chefs said. And I met my now wife, Megan, and she said, I think you're great, but I'm moving to New York City in 6 months. Well, you're welcome to come if you'd like. And I'd never been to New York. And so 2 months later, she met my parents. I told them I was moving. So I followed her to New York.
Well, back up. I've heard this story told as you're leaving something out. They weren't real fond of her because of this. How many years did that take to heal?
No, my dad was always one to be like, my dad loved her. My mom loved her, but she was taking the baby of the family away from Birmingham, Alabama, which was a rather rare thing, in my opinion. Even now, I understand it more than ever. It doesn't really happen.
So you get to New York, the most elevated culinary environment in America, fresh out of Birmingham, Alabama. Were you pounding the pavement for long to find a job?
So the story is, Frank Stitt gave me a list of probably 8 restaurants. And I probably have the piece of paper somewhere of places I should go trail at, interview at. So it happens to be a week after the James Beard Awards, and Gramercy Tavern had just won Most Outstanding Restaurant. Frank was at the awards, obviously, because I'm sure he was up for something or whatnot. And so Frank met Mike Anthony.
The owner of Gramercy Tavern, correct?
Yeah. And I went to trail. My first trail was at Gramercy when I moved.
Using Frank's connection to get you in the door?
Yeah, I mean...
Nothing wrong with that.
No, I know. I think it was, for sure. I set it up on my own. They answered. I went and trailed. Mike was off that night. And I tell the story a lot these days. My wife, Megan, and I were in Chelsea at Trader Joe's. And I said, oh, Megan, there's a New York number calling my phone. I went outside and it was Mike Anthony. He offered me the job. I went inside and I said, Megan, I don't know who I just talked to, but this was the nicest phone call I've ever had in my life. This guy was just so polite and respectful and nice. But I got a job at Gramercy Tavern and I start actually on Tuesday.
Now, how long had you been in New York at that point?
Like 4 days.
It doesn't often happen like that, does it, Kyle?
I said for years and years, I'm extremely lucky. That was my first restaurant, really the only restaurant I worked in before I opened my own in New York.
And we'll be right back. You came from an esteemed restaurant in Birmingham, but now you're in the bigs.
Right.
Was it a shock? Did you fit right in?
I had the same feeling that I had when I was 19, when I started working for Frank, where the chef de cuisine and the sous chef was really just, I worked at Chez Fonfon and it was really just us, like and 2 other cooks. So we were really close. I remember feeling them watch me cook hot food and feel like, oh shit, he's got it. He knows what he's doing. I had that moment again where it was like, yeah, it was harder and I had a lot to learn and I was the low man, but I knew what I could do it. And I feel like when I started at Gramercy, that was evident that like, hey, this guy is very respectful and knows that he can hang and do it. And yeah, it took a long time.
Well, you ended up as sous chef there, right?
Right. So I worked through all the stations, was a sous chef my last 2 years. And I tell everybody it was the best job. And I mean, truly as a 25-year-old young chef, chef in New York City. I was running the pass in the main dining room 5 nights a week. It was the dream job. And I didn't want to leave.
Why'd you leave?
So I got an opportunity. And this is like the best story of Mike Anthony of all time. And I know there's hundreds. This husband and wife team were opening a new restaurant in the city. They had a Brooklyn restaurant called Chart Number 4. They were looking for a chef with Southern background, and someone introduced them to me. And so I went and had coffee, and I said, yeah, I really love what I'm doing. I don't think I want to leave. And Sean Joseph was his name. He's like, well, why don't you just not say no yet? Think about it. Have you ever done a tasting? Why don't you just do a tasting for fun? And so right away, I went to Gramercy. I talked to Mike, and Mike's like, okay, let's just see what happens. Let's not jump the gun. Let's be patient, figure it out. You should do a tasting. That's fine. I probably did some prep at Gramercy, took it home, did the tasting, and it worked out really well. They offered me the job, talked to Mike again, and he's like, let's still be patient. Let's make sure that this is the right thing. And I remember Mike saying, I'm going to go walk around 26th Street during dinner service and just see what it feels like to run that neighborhood. And ended up, Mike's like, I think you should do it. And I think you should take 2 people from here to be a part of your opening team.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Magnanimous is one thing, but hello?
Yeah. So I left in 2012 after being at GT for about 5 years to open Maysville. It was on 26th Street and Broadway.
Well, you did well, right? I mean, the Times liked you.
Yeah, we opened with basically 8 chefs. I think 5 of us had all worked at Gramercy together at some point. And I think day 2, we were like, this is home. We're already rocking and rolling.
What kind of food were you cooking?
It was supposedly Southern food, but we bought all of our produce from the Union Square Green Market. The menu changed basically daily. We tried to think about using smoke because we had a bunch of American whiskeys. So it was fresh. I mean, it was like high acid fresh, just like I cook now.
I'm confused about something. On the last season of The Bear, he's changing the menu every day and everyone's going nuts. And I've heard that Michelin has a hard time judging your consistency if you're changing the menu every day.
Right.
And that for the folks in the restaurant, it's hell.
Right.
How hard is it? I mean, you were doing it.
It's different than that. We weren't like thinking we were the most creative guys in the world, saying we're the best, we're doing this. We were just buying the best produce at the Union Square Market and making sure we were utilizing it properly. So we would like switch ingredients out. Yeah, dishes would change completely and stuff, but it was this organic thing. It wasn't this like, we didn't have our chip on our shoulders thinking we were the best and most creative guys. To us, we were just making simple, delicious food with great ingredients. At the same time, giving a little nod to the American South for sure. And so, yeah, that was 2012. And 2 years in, my partner said, we're going to move back to New Orleans where we're from. And we want to open a second restaurant. And we want you to be the chef partner of that as well.
So wait, you were a partner at Maysville?
Yep. In my discussions before I took the job, Mike Anthony was like, you should ask for this. You should do this. You should do this. And so I left GT, the chef partner of Maysville.
Okay, and now your partner in that gig is moving to New Orleans.
Yeah.
So you go to New Orleans? You open a restaurant there?
Well, yeah, we opened a restaurant called Kenton's in New Orleans. It's where Lon Shai's restaurant is, Saba now. We opened that restaurant, I think, in 2016. I lived in New York. My wife, Megan, was still in New York. Would travel back and forth. It was amazing.
What were you doing there? What kind of food?
A guy that caught shrimp would be at our back door every day. Produce that was grown down in the bayou that was brought to our back door every day. But it was similar style. There was a few things that were on the same menu, but yeah, we're just still cooking like what was fresh and what we had available to us. And it was great. New Orleans Magazine named us Best New Restaurant. It was a great place.
How do you compete? Maybe compete's the wrong word. How do you stand out in such an unbelievable restaurant town?
I think you just make good food. You're humble. You make good food, use good ingredients. I don't know. That's kind of what we've always thought about, talked about.
Well, did you have a signature dish there?
We had a signature dish at Maysville that we brought there. It was a little piece of fried polenta. We served 5 of them that had country ham draped on top, like a hot brown. But in New York, we use incredible polenta from the Hudson Valley. In New Orleans, we use incredible polenta from Louisiana. And so the dish basically was the exact same and people loved it. The food was always fresh and vibrant. And that's kind of what we've always just focused on.
Okay, now you end up coming back to New York. Did you sell the restaurant? Or is this one of those awful restaurant industry stories where things went bad?
No, it's not awful. I mean, Sean and Monty and I are still friends. We sell he has a bourbon called Pinhook that we sell more than anyone in the Midwest here at Birch. I left the company. I needed some time. It was hard, obviously, because you think you're going to own something and it's yours forever, but that's never really the case, which is completely fine.
So you come back to New York and you're working...
I was still at Maysville in New York.
Right.
It just was like, okay, I'm going to stop going to New Orleans. And then at the end of the year, I'm going to leave Maysville.
For...
I didn't know what at the time. There were some talks with some other restaurant groups, got my hopes up. Things never worked out.
It's a tough damn business, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But at the same time, when things work out, if you let things work out, like I learned a lot in this time period I'm about to talk about. I tried to force, I was like, oh, I really want that job. And it didn't work out. And then I was like, what am I going to do? I took a temporary job working with Laurent Torrendale, and I went to London to help him open a restaurant.
I've had him on the podcast.
Yeah, I saw that. We didn't know each other. A headhunter put us in touch, and he's like, okay, you've got the chops. I need some help. And then I helped him open a pizzeria in the Hamptons. And then I spent like 3 months just in New York City with him, which was cool. Like a different chef than my mentors, but it was a blast. I think what he enjoys in restaurants is really amazing to watch. He just loves having fun. It was a cool experience. And so in that, I think it was 6-month period, I applied to be the chef of the Clock Tower in New York. I did a tasting for it. They said, you can have the job if you want it. We have another project we'd love for you to think about doing. And that was Electric Lemon in the Equinox Hotel.
Back in a moment.
So I went through probably 3 months of trying to figure that out. And I did take the job in the Equinox Hotel.
Executive chef.
Yeah, the chef of the hotel and restaurant. I was brought on board probably 18 months before we opened. So I spent a lot of time in star restaurants really all over the coast, which is really cool to see, and developed the menu, went through all that with Steven and his team.
Steven Starr.
Yeah, which to me was the best experience of the whole thing, was going through that process. Like, it was a lot of pressure to cook for him and get his approval, but it was very gratifying, and we got along great, and I just loved it. It was exciting.
What'd you learn? What was the big takeaway?
Personally, I think I slowed down a little bit, and it made me focus a little bit. And then the food itself, my culinary voice, I think shaped pretty drastically with this project.
Shaped how? I mean, did your culinary voice change?
Not really. So Equinox is obviously like a gym club. And so the idea in their hotel, it didn't need to be health-driven food. But I personally, the idea was I'm going to focus on the proper amount of fats to use. And with that, I made sure that what I was cooking, the flavor would shine and wouldn't be overwhelmed by butter or other fat. To me, it really refined how I cooked. And I think in that, it became prettier. Not that that's what matters, but overall, I love what we did there, but COVID happened and that kind of shut it down for us. And I decided through COVID, my wife and I did, that it wouldn't be the right opportunity to go back and reopen. We moved on from New York after 13 years during COVID and made the move to Milwaukee.
Why Milwaukee? You're from the South. You're enjoying the chef life in New York. Your wife's in the business also.
Right.
And out of nowhere, you say, oh, what the hell? Let's go to Wisconsin?
My wife grew up here before she moved to Alabama.
In Milwaukee.
Yeah, that's the tie. And we've obviously visited many times through the years, and we love the community here. We saw great opportunity here. We knew that agriculture was extremely important here. Frank Stitt did a lot for Birmingham. And one of the biggest parts of that is his proteges created a lot of amazing restaurants. To me, I didn't want to be part of that because I didn't want to compete with that. But also, like, I want to just move forward. I didn't want to move back to where I was. You know, like one day we might not live in Milwaukee. We'll probably move somewhere else when the kids are older and stuff. So to me, it was just something new, something different. And we just love Milwaukee.
Had you found Birch before you moved?
No, we moved in August of 2020. Still pretty hot and heavy with pandemic stuff. The day after I moved here, my mother-in-law brought us to this farm where she, through the pandemic, was buying prepared meals. And she said, you have to see this place. And I said, oh, great. To us, the most important thing is finding the right farmers markets and farmers and stuff. So we went to Stonebank Farm Market, and the next week I started making prepared meals there out of all the produce that sold in the market.
Working for them or as a project of your own?
Working for them. Michelle, who runs it, hired me to come on board. And I said, the food y'all been making for to-go food is, it's fine, but let's create a culinary voice for this operation here, for this community. And so I worked there full time for about 8 months. That led into doing cooking classes on the farm, dinners in the barn, really everything. Just this extremely strong, progressive mentality of agriculture they have going on there. And I really want to be a part of it. And I found a way to be a part of it.
Well, what were the meals you were making?
The market was closed Sunday, Monday. And so on Monday, I'd go in, I'd take all the produce from upstairs that wasn't pretty anymore to sell, and I would turn it into meals. And I would make things like honey nut squash hummus. I would make grain bowls with, all the root vegetables that were available. And this was the beginning of winter in Wisconsin. So I tell everybody, man, I moved here during winter. but I'm happy as a clam because I'm in like this cellar storage area and there's 5 different kinds of squashes. To me, that's what makes me happy. Of course, I want to be back in a restaurant, but right now I'm content making delicious food with all these ingredients.
Now, you still have a relationship. You still work with or for the farm?
Yeah. So at the time, it was just me for a few weeks, and then we brought on someone else. And it was like 3 of us for about 8 months. When I stepped away, I was there 1 day a week after that. And now there's 6 cooks there. 4 of them have worked at Birch and moved on from Birch to go work there.
And what's your position with the farm?
Just culinary director.
When you moved on, you looked up and said, okay, now it's restaurant time again?
Well, I was still there and I found this space where Birch is. And Birch was another restaurant called Birch and Butcher that shut down during COVID. The owners were a husband and wife team that separated. She was looking for someone to sell the restaurant to. I said, let me operate it for like 6 months so you can get your finances right through COVID and dealing with everything that you've dealt with. And then I'll buy it from you. And so we opened in May of 21. And then I bought it, my wife and I, 6 months in. Yeah, it's kind of history from there.
Okay, let's talk about history. So what'd you do? It's your restaurant now.
Yeah, it's basically a brand new restaurant. The only similarity is that the word Birch was in the original name and it's the name of the restaurant now. So everything changed except for the table and chairs. The atmosphere changed, service style changed, hospitality changed, food changed completely.
Okay, let's start with the food.
Yeah, we're very, very, very fortunate to have this special farmers market called the West Dallas Farmers Market. We go there Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Like right now, we probably have 40 different varieties of vegetables in our cooler. They all come from that market and they're all on our menu in some form.
Okay, I was going to wait to get to the menu, but tell me about the dishes.
The best part about Birch is pre-existing, before it was my restaurant, was just a fire. So there's no gas in the restaurant.
It's all live fire?
Yeah, there's just a big open hearth. If something's cooked, it's cooked over fire at some point or another. Maybe there's some summer squash that's grilled before service and marinated in a vinaigrette, and then it just goes on a plate in that form. Obviously, the proteins are grilled a la minute over the fire, but that fire really plays a role in how we cook and how we put boundaries on how we cook.
Explain. Boundaries like what?
I think as chefs, of course, you can fall in love with 100 different cookbooks and say, I want to do this, I want to do that. But for us, it's great to have these boundaries because there's only so much that we can actually do. But it works out for us because it makes us able to focus on the ingredients more than anything. If we were grilling like grocery store green beans, they would not taste good. But since we're buying these pole beans from a certain farmer that are like just delicious raw, when they get blistered over the fire, we're only enhancing the flavor of that bean that tastes so good already.
You have limitations. I would assume that temperature control is one of them.
Yeah.
What are the positives? I mean, I was speaking with Drew Nieporn, the legendary restaurateur.
Yeah. My wife worked at Corton for him.
Okay, well, I said, what's hot now? He said, everyone's cooking over open fire.
Right.
Seems like you were a little early to that party. What are the positives? What does that give you beyond having to overcome constraints?
It creates flavor. It enhances ingredients. Let's just talk about beans again because everybody knows what a green bean is. If you're going to cook them in a pan with shallots and butter, they're going to taste good, but they're going to taste like shallots and butter and green beans. If you cook pristine pole beans from a farmer who picked them this morning over fire and you blister them and you don't overcook them and they're crunchy, but they have that roasted flavor and you season them properly, you're enhancing the ingredient instead of overpowering it with another flavor. To me, it lets simplicity shine.
Give me some more examples of the things you're doing.
Our favorite dish, we call it Contramar-inspired fish. My wife and I are in love with Contramar in Mexico City.
That's a restaurant.
Yeah. They made this dish famous where they take I think it's a snapper. They rub it with 2 different pastes and they cook it over charcoal and they serve it with tortillas. It's a beautiful dish, just fun to eat. So we take this local brook trout from probably 30 minutes from Birch and our huge fire where we're like building coals to shovel coals over to cook. We put that trout, we rub it with 2 different pastes that change throughout the year. We take all of our trim from vegetables, we ferment them, we make a paste, we rub it on the fish, we put it in a basket and we cook that fish right in the fire. Those flames just caramelize that thin fish extremely quick. Normally, if you try to like caramelize a trout, you're going to cook the hell out of it and it's going to be overcooked. And so the way we do it, it's caramelized, it's beautiful, kind of black and brown, and the colors shine through from the fish. But then it's perfectly cooked because it didn't cook long. It cooked like a minute and a half. That dish for us, it's all about the ingredients. If you look at it on the table, you're like, am I in Mexico City? But everything that's part of that dish is from Wisconsin. We make tortillas everything's local that are served with it. It's just an amazing thing. And when you eat it, yeah, it tastes like great food from Mexico City. But at the same time, like to me, it tastes like cooking at Birch more than anything, which I think is super cool.
If you don't have a flat top or a range, I'm looking at some of the other, you have beef short rib filled pasta. Are you making short ribs over the fire?
Yeah, they cook over the fire. So that's the last course of our tasting menu is the short rib. We take the trim from that and then we grind it up to put inside the pasta.
Didn't occur to me. I mean, that's a low and slow dish. How do you control that over an open fire?
It spends time in the beginning and the end over the fire. So it gets grilled and charred over the fire, and then it cooks slow and low in the oven. And then on the pickup, it gets caramelized again over the fire. That's the funny thing with things that are like traditional braises. If you look at our kitchen, most of the time you can put a huge pot on and get it ripping hot and cook anything super quick. For us, we look at the fire and we're like, okay, how are we going to do this? So we have like a huge, like for that dish, we char all of that over the fire. One of our slogans and something we talk a lot about is acid and herbs. We use a ton of acidity and we use a ton of fresh herbs in our cooking.
Why? Why acid and herbs? Why is that going to make me happy if I'm having dinner?
I like it. I like freshness. Like 2 years ago, I was making my dad's barbecue chicken at my house. And I took a bite of it and it was delicious. And it was before I dipped it in the really acidic sauce. And I was like, that's good. I don't want to sit and eat it. But after I doused it with the acidic sauce, I could sit there all day and eat it. I think that it's like your mind, you almost get tricked into feeling like, oh, I can sit here and enjoy this even more when it's really fresh and vibrant.
Now, there are things on your menu that do not come from your backyard. I mean, you've got scallops. I think you do oysters.
Typically, I would say 99% of the days here, the only thing that doesn't come from our backyard is the Hudson Valley steelhead trout. I used that fish when I was in New York and fell in love with it. It comes straight from the fishery every Tuesday. We get 6 whole fish and it's pristine. It's beautiful. In the really hot days in the Midwest, the walleye in the lake go down really deep and the fishermen can't catch it. And so the only thing that we buy is scallops at that time because I know they'll be fresh and we replace walleye. The oysters are on our menu because we had a pop-up with Nando Chang last week, and the oysters were our canapé with Nando.
I talked to him just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, he cooked with us 2 nights, and I'm lucky to have Frank Stitt and Mike Anthony as mentors and amazing people in my life. That dude, Nando, is just as special. We spent 4 days cooking together. We're here at 8 a.m., left at midnight. But we had smiles on our face the whole time. And it's like, this is it. It's love.
His speech at the James Beard Awards talking about immigration was extremely moving.
Yeah, for sure.
For anyone who doesn't know, he just won the James Beard Best Chef of the South for his Peruvian-Japanese restaurant, Itamayao in Miami, which has now closed.
Right.
Do you have any inside intelligence on where he's going to reopen?
Yeah, I don't know. He's doing some pop-ups in New York. Him and I obviously talked a lot about it. When people see a restaurant close, it's like, oh, you won this award, but it failed. Like, that's not the case at all. I'm sure it's tough for him because people think that, but their landlord wanted something different or wanted him to do something different or whatever. So it had nothing, it's no reflection of how busy it was or quality or anything. I ate there in January and I fell in love with it. And I said, look, this is the most truly amazing food I've ever eaten. I said to him every time I talked to him, it's like, nobody uses acidity and freshness like I do, but you do it in a totally different way. And it's just, you can't explain it until you taste it. So I said, we got to cook together, and we made it happen. He came up here and we had a great time.
As you alluded to a moment ago, finances in the restaurant business are tough. Great restaurants close all the time. So you're going to open another restaurant.
Yeah.
What are you, nuts?
It'll be a totally different kind of restaurant. So it's not a comparison, but we think we have an opportunity to do something special again, and we're excited about it.
Well, it's going to be called Cassis, correct?
Yep.
What's it going to be?
In Milwaukee, like when I moved here, people that had been to Milwaukee to visit, they all said, oh, you're going to open a restaurant in the 3rd Ward? I said, well, I actually found this space, Birch. It's not in the 3rd Ward, but it's amazing.
And what is the 3rd Ward?
It's kind of like the center hub it's where the public market is.
It's the hip happening place. Okay.
By far. So we opened Birch. We'll go hang out in the 3rd Ward. We saw this new building going up where a parking lot is right in the center of it. And I said, we got to figure that out. So I reached out to the developer and I said, I'm really interested in building a French bistro here because, my opinion, a large French brasserie is a place that the whole community can come to and have a great time at all times of day. Brunch, lunch, dinner. And I think this is a great location for it. And so, yeah, it worked out. And Cassis is going to be on the ground level of this high-rise building. The entrance is on a street called St. Paul, but the restaurant is basically on the Riverwalk. And so it's all windows, all glass, faces the river. It's like a 200-seat restaurant, huge bar, beautiful private dining room. But it's a place that we want to celebrate simple French cooking, basically from the south of France. I don't like putting titles on things because if we want to do something that's not from the south south of France, we'll do it. But Cassis is a region in France that we love from the south of France. We love the wines from there, and we love how pretty it is. And so that's what we're doing.
This is kind of, in some respects, back to the future. You were doing French food in Birmingham, right? For Frank Stitt?
Right. I've said, like, if there's something I'm comfortable with doing, it's cooking French bistro style food. If I'm comfortable doing something that's not American, as we call like Gramercy and Maysville and Birch and all the restaurants.
So what? Moule frite, escargot, what else?
Yeah, I mean, moules frite, escargot, like we're going to take ideas and not refine them, but make them our own. To me, what's amazing about Frank Stitt, you go to Chez Fonfon, Highlands, and Bottega. Obviously, Highlands is a pledge to the American South. Fonfon is a French bistro. Bottega is a Italian restaurant. And I think they all fit with what they're supposed to, but you know that it's Frank Stitt's food. I think it's amazing when you see a chef do that. We're going to do classic dishes, but we'll make them our own. The produce that's being used in dishes will come from farmers we know, but we'll definitely freshen them up. There'll definitely be more acidity than normal. So we've done a pop-up every last Thursday of the month at Birch. We open as Cassis. And the common thing said is like, it feels French, it looks French, it's a little fresher. It tastes French, but it tastes like Birch touched it. Even though there's a ton of butter in it, there's plenty of acidity to balance it as well.
Is there a best hits dish that the fans have gone nuts for?
I hate to talk about it because unless you see it, it sounds like just a croque. But one of the big ideas is taking these dishes that if you sit down at a table in a brasserie or bistro, every dish I feel like you want to eat, but some entrees are like, I want to eat that, but I don't want to order it. I'd rather taste a bunch of small things. And so I love the idea of taking these traditional dishes and making them almost like canapes. And so we're making a croque. We're using this raclette cheese that's made 20 minutes from here called Alpenich raclette. So that's in the croque. We're toasting it with Wisconsin butter.
Ooh.
We're cutting it into these soldiers, and then we're draping country ham on top. So it's these 3 little soldiers that are set up that you can pick up and eat. That's the one dish that we put on the first pop-up and we didn't take off. And we're going to do in Brooklyn in a few weeks for a pop-up and things like that. So with that idea of taking these dishes, like even like lamb Navarian, I don't want to order a whole plate of it, but let's figure out how to make it in a dish that it can be shared at a table with a bunch of people.
Which dish?
Lamb Navarian. That just came into my head. It's like a French braised lamb dish that has African influences.
Ooh.
But being able to do that is going to be a lot of fun. Creating a bunch of food that can be shared in a really pretty fun way.
Listen, best of luck to you. Keep it up. I trust and hope this has the kind of success that you're used to having.
Well, I appreciate that so much.
Chef, thank you so much for taking the time. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. I very much appreciate it.
It's been great. Thanks so much.
Kyle Knall on Culinary Characters on Lock. I'm David Page, and I'll see you next time.